Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be drafting a professional CV. And first things first. So we are going to make use of a combination type of CV. So combination, it consists of the functional as well as the reverse chronological CV type. And you'll see that the reverse chronological type comes in where you do your employment history as well as your education section. The functional type comes in where we do your skills section. So a very important thing to note about a CV, guys, is that it's a marketing tool that you use to persuade your potential employer that you are the right fit for the job. So meaning that you should only include only selling points. So if you are thinking or contemplating on including something in your CV, think of it this way. Is this thing a selling point? So is this going to portray that I am the right fit for the job? And if the answer is no, you leave it out. Okay, so for this CV, we are going to make use of Arial, but you can also make use of Times New Roman. Those are the fonts with 10 to 12 font sizes, and you can make your headings to be between font size 14 and 16, and you can also bold them. Make sure you use the same format throughout your CV, and CVs, guys, are at a maximum of 2 pages and not more than that. And lastly, make sure that you write your CV in third person voice and not first person voice. This is normally done with the professional profile section, the relevant skills section, as well as the achievement section. Without wasting any more time, let's get into the drafting of us. Okay, guys, so firstly, we are going to look at our personal details sections, and it consists of 3 things, which is your name and your surname, your residential address, as well as your contact details. Also note that it is not necessary for you to say curriculum vitae off, and also residential address is not compulsory, but it is advantageous in instances where residents of a certain district or community are required to apply. And also, lastly, guys, it is not necessary to include your age, your ID number, the number of kids you have, your marital status, your nationality. It's not necessary, because it's just going to fill up space on your CV, and those things are not selling points. So they are not factors that determine whether you can or you cannot perform the job. So you should at all means avoid including them on your CV. We are now going to look at the professional profile section. So this is the advert, as you can see. First, you introduce yourself: an energetic and self-motivated professional with 5 years of experience in the agricultural sector. Okay, so you are letting the new employer know of who you are. And then secondly, you talk about the functions that you have performed that will help you perform in your new role. So as you can see, the gold is in line with the advert. So you must always make sure that the functions that you list in your professional profile relates to what is required in the advertisement. Okay, and then here you talk about the skills that you possess. Now, some recruiters will say that saying possesses exceptional communication skills and the ability to maintain and to establish and maintain good working relations with customers is some sort of a cliche, So, and I would advise to avoid cliches in CVs. So instead of telling them that you have exceptional communication skills, rather write about an example that shows that you have exceptional communication skills. And instead of saying the ability to establish and maintain good working relations with customers, write an example of how you established and maintained good working relations with customers. For instance, I'm just thinking from the top of my head, you can write about a time where you started a job, and when you started that job, you were introduced to new clients, and later on those clients that you had moved to another professional, and even though they were no longer your clients, you still maintained a good working relationship with them, in that maybe they'd come to you for advice, or just give examples like that. And obviously you'd have to be brief, because a professional profile should be between 5 to 6 lines. And yeah. And then the last part of the professional profile, you write about the objective. I know it doesn't make sense to say, for some people, it doesn't make sense to say, why should I include an objective in a CV if, I'm applying for this type of post. An objective, it's important because it gives the employer a sense of the direction that you want to take in terms of your career. So it lets them know of your future career plans, and for them it's important because then they will see if you are the right fit for the person that they are looking for. And you can just say, currently seeking an opportunity to make best use of the skills acquired whilst enabling personal and professional development. It's important to always relate what you talk about in your CV to the advert. Okay. And when it comes to speaking about your skills, you can look at the advert again, what they what is it that the employer requires. For instance, you can talk about a time where you paid high attention to detail, where you were able to work under pressure, and so on and so forth. And then you are done with your professional profile. Okay, guys, so we are now going to look at the employment history. And first, I just want to say that before we begin, the employment history is a section where you find that the reason for your CV not to be 2 pages as required is because a lot of people include a lot of unnecessary things on their employment history section. You find that in your current job, you do a lot of things, but it's not really necessary for you to make mention of all those things. You should always use the advert as your guide and to see what it is that would be most advantageous for you to include in your CV. So you should definitely have a look at your CV and the advert and determine which functions that you perform in your current role, which that are going to be your greatest selling point. Okay, although it's relevant, for instance, you do something that is relevant to the job that you're applying for, but is it necessary comparing to the to the advert, is it necessary for you to make mention of that thing? So if it's not, then you should leave it out. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to start by saying that the structure that I chose here is because this person has a number of years of experience as an agricultural economist. So that's the reason why you see recent employment history and previous employment history. So it is not necessary for you to include functions or work that you did more than 10 years ago, okay? So that's why you see she started working in 2009, and that is why the agricultural economist role here, it's not necessary for you to make mention, to make bullets, to make mention of the functions that you performed, because it's most probably irrelevant, as jobs do change over time, and they develop and they evolve. So yeah, so there is really no need for you to include things that you did 10 years ago. You can just say previous employment history and the title, the job title, as well as the company name. So you don't even have to mention the years, because sometimes it can work in your disadvantage. Employers are not allowed to, discriminate you against your age, but weirder things happen in this world, guys. So yes, so that's that. And then also I would just like to say that when you do your employment history, you should at all times start with your greatest selling point. So look at your advert and start with the things that relate to the job advert. Do not copy and paste, just to make mentions of the functions that you do that you think are your greatest selling points, and they should at all times relate to your advert. Another point is that when writing or drafting your employment history, you must make use of action verbs. Action verbs are important because they give the employer an impression that you are a motivated and you are a positive person, and that you know how to carry yourself in the business context. And also, where you can quantify, you should quantify and write things in number. If you did this, if you do this, if where you can quantify, make use of numbers, because they have a really great impact on your CV, other than just writing words. For instance, if it's a number, you must write it in number forms. Like if it's 20, don't write 20 in words, write 20. Okay. And then again, guys, it is not necessary for you to mention everything that you do in your current job. Your advert should always serve as a guide, and make your employment history not too brief. You must definitely have information, and sufficient information that will help the employer see that you are the right person for the job. But just avoid writing, the minute you see your employment history being half a page long, you must also look at your sentences. Maybe you can take some words. Maybe you can structure your sentences in a different way to make them to summarize them and make them shorter. So the idea is not to exclude valuable information or information that will assist the employer to see that you are the right fit for the job, but to just briefly state your important, your strong selling point. And lastly, guys, I can just say when drafting your employment history, take care of what we call keywords on your job advert. Okay, so keywords might be words like, customers. You can, instead of saying clients, say customers, because of ATS, applicant tracking system. This is a system that certain companies use to make their shortlist. So before your CV gets into the hand of a recruiter, it goes through that system, and then that system checks it whether it approves or rejects your application. And most of the times it looks at keywords, like I said, custom, instead of saying clients, say customer as it is in the advert. And also, a way that you can look for keywords in a job description. Job description is here. So you look for keywords, and these keywords you can specifically look for industry specific language, jargon. You can look for softwares. So for instance, here, if it was required that you must have sufficient knowledge of the ATS, then you must write in your CV that you did this and this and this, you worked with ATS, as it is. For instance, if they say ad hoc required and they say ATS, then somewhere in your CV you must have participating in research and promotion of ATS activities. This is just for example, guys. And then you can have ATS activities, and if you like, you can just write it in full, because mostly before they reach to the hiring managers, they first have to go through the recruiter, and the recruiter may, most cases not know what ATS stands for. So if it's ATS like that, it's fine. You can also say ATS, and also say applicant tracking system in brackets, just so that the recruiter knows what you're talking about. And yeah, that's just about it. I'll do a video with more that has more details on ATS, and yeah, that is just about it. And that is it with your employment history. Otherwise, guys, if you are new into the employment world and you have very little experience, there's no need to say recent history. This is people who have a lengthy employment history, and then here you can follow the same things. Here you can put on, and here you can put on the dates, and then underneath you can write the duties that you did. That is provided that the experience that you have is not longer than 10 years. It will sure be in your most favor to include to specify what it is that you did when you were or in your earlier positions. So yeah, that is it with your employment history. Just work on it. It doesn't have to be 2 pages long, guys. Your employment history does not have to be 2 pages long. You don't have to include every single thing that you do in your current job on your job on your CV. Use your advert as a guide. You see here they say other ad hoc duties when required. If you still have space, you can just include some of those things, some of those extra things that you do, a limited amount of them. However, it is not necessary. Just use your advert as a guide, and then you are good to go. So just below employment history, we have achievements. Now, these are, things that you achieved whilst you are working. And just take note that you don't have to include your achievements from 10 years ago if you have, like I've mentioned, a very detailed career history in that you started working 20 years to 15 to 30 years ago. You don't need to include the achievements that you had 10 years back. So anything that you achieved 10 years back is not necessary for you to include here. And unlike other sections, instead of showing you how to write your achievements, I thought it would be a good idea to actually give you ideas on what you can write your achievements as, because sometimes we can overlook simple things, but they make the greatest impact. For instance, you can write about the time you handled complaints, teamwork. For instance, if your team, a team that you were part of in the company that you worked in, achieved something because you were part of that team, you can make mention of it. You can make mention of positive customer feedback. You can make mention of awards that you received. You can make mention of your efficiency or your improvement on processes, or your handling time. You can make mention of the time you saved the company money, or you made them more money, the time you came up with, and the list goes on. So what you also need to know is that you can also make use of the CAR technique, which is CAR. The CAR is for the challenge, what was happening, and the A is for the action. What did you do? What did you do to remedy that challenge? And then the R is for results. What were the results after the action that you took? And also you can in the same breath make use of action verbs when writing out your achievements. Also avoid repetition when you are writing your sentences. Avoid a sentence that has one or more action verbs. And you can also state personal achievements as they reflect your personality, and they do distinguish you from other candidates. And make use of numbers, because they have a great impact. For instance, instead of saying you have subordinates, you can rather say, just as an example, you can rather say you have 12 subordinates reporting to you. And lastly, if you are in that job, you can make use of present tense. However, sometimes present tense can make for awkward reading, so you can make use of present participle tenses, which are words that add with ing. For instance, formulating, evaluating, developing, making, and so forth. So yeah, that's just it with your achievement section. We are now going to look at the education section, and this section is pretty straightforward. What you need to know is that you need to list your qualifications in reverse chronological order. So that means that your first qualification will go at the bottom, and your last or your latest will be here at the top. And also, instead of saying Bachelor of Science, honors, honors in full, we said BSc as it is in the advert. And that's how it should be. If they say Bachelor of Science, then you can say Bachelor of Science. Remember ATS. And that is the reason why we do that. And also, if you have any non-academic or short courses that you did that relates to the job that you are applying for, then you can list them under professional development. As you can see here, 2019, food security and sustainability. You can also list your research topic. If you did any in your BSc, in your master's, in your PhD, then you can list them. So also please note that, for instance, if you did your master's, it must be here above this. So it must be here, your master's, and if you did your PhD, it must be at the top. So that is the education section, and you are good to go. So we are now going to look at the relevant skills section. This section is also quite simple. What you need to do firstly is look at your advert. What are the type of skills that your advert requires, or what type of skills are required in your new job? Okay, so also what type of skills do you have that relates to the job that you are trying to apply for and will eventually help you to carry out those functions? So you can list 4 to 5 skills, and yeah, it's just straightforward computer skills. Also make sure, for instance, with computer skills, to write them out as they are on the CV. For instance, instead of writing out Microsoft Office, you write MS Office, because in your advert they say MS Office. Again, remember ATS, okay? And Excel, Word, and PowerPoint, they should be exactly like they are in the advert. Okay, and then you have communication skills. Presented a report at the AgriScience seminar for 200 guests. And yes, if you can, you must include numericals. They have more effect than just writing 200 out, writing it out in Word. So write 200 in numbers than spelling it out. It creates a great effect, and also it pops out to the recruiter's eyes. And then language skills, able to speak, read, and write English as it is in the advert. And also here's another technique that you can use when drafting your relevant skills section. So instead of just saying presented a report at the AgriScience seminar for 200 guests, you can use the STAR technique. So the STAR as in like STAR. So the S stands for the situation, that is the company had a manual filing system, and then the T stands for task, and you write what it is that you had to do. Was tasked with creating an electronic filing system. And then A stands for action, where you have to describe what it is that you did, which is created and implemented a Google Drive folder to store all the company's files. And then the R stands for results, where you have to tell us how, your action to the situation resulted in, and reports were accessed easily and quickly. You don't have to use this technique for each and every skill that you list, but you can definitely one or two just make use of the STAR technique if you feel that it is quite difficult for you to express your position of a certain type of skill. And that is it with your relevant skill sections. And also you must remember that if you have a skill that does not relate to the job that you are applying for, you should not list it here. The potentially second last section to include in your CV, things like your professional affiliations and or registrations, as well as your hobbies and interests. But please make sure that, of course, when you do have extra space on your CV, please make sure that when you list your hobbies and interests, that they actually relate to the post that you are applying for. For instance, if you are applying for this post, you can make mention of interests that you have in the agricultural discipline. You can, for instance, if you are applying for social media related posts, you can show your interest for social media. You also need to make sure that your hobbies and interests relates to the job that you are apply for. And the last section when drafting your professional CV is the references. So you need to list them in this type of order: their name, their relationship to you, the company, their telephone number, as well as their email address. As we all know, we do not include friends and family on our reference list. And also ensure that you notify these people or let them know beforehand, before listing them on your CV, that you are going to list them as your references on your CV. And lastly, ensure that the email addresses are not in hyperlink. Hyperlink is when they are blue and underlined like this. So ensure that they are not hyperlinked, so that when recruiters print out your CVs, that your email will be crystal clear. Lastly, guys, we are done with the drafting of our professional CV. And as you can see, it's 2 pages long. Before you submit your CV, just use apps like Grammarly to check for any spelling errors. Spelling errors on the CV, guys, are very bad. They give the employer the impression that your work is very sloppy. So at all times, do avoid spelling errors as well as any grammatical errors. And always remember to send your CV in PDF format, because sometimes when you send it in Word, when it gets to another person, they try to open it, the format of your structure might change. So PDF is always safe, as the formatting will always be contained and in place. And also ensure that you use the same formatting skills throughout your CV. And my last advice is that when you make use of the bold function. Always make sure to bold important things that you want the recruiter or your potential employer to first notice when they see your CV. So it wouldn't do you justice to highlight your company's name. It wouldn't do you justice to highlight, some of the unimportant factors. So also here, your university name is not important to highlight, but your degree is, as well as the research topic. Yeah. And also just ensure that you use the same formatting skills throughout your CV. And that is it. You are done with your CV.